I never expected that the dinner I had been looking forward to for months would end like this. Standing alone outside the restaurant, my hands trembling, I watched the others inside, laughing and chatting through the large glass windows. But no one inside had any idea what was going on out here. I had been invited to this family gathering, but when I showed up, there was no reservation under my name. The maitre d' looked at me as if I were invisible, as if I didn't even belong in this place. "The reservation is under Sarah Lawrence," he said, with no sign of hesitation. Sarah, the woman who had made my life a living hell for years, had orchestrated this. Was this some cruel joke? Or was it a deliberate attempt to humiliate me once and for all? I took a deep breath, refusing to let my emotions spill over. I wasn't about to let her win. Again. I had been silent for too long, allowing her to undermine me, to control every situation. But tonight was different. I wasn't the naive, quiet woman I used to be. I had learned too much in the years we had been together. And now, I would prove that I was more than just a pawn in her game. How could she possibly have thought I wouldn't retaliate? This wasn't a mistake. It was an intentional blow, designed to push me out, to make me feel less than. But I wasn't backing down. I wasn't going to be the one standing outside, watching the life I could have had through a glass window. With a calm resolve, I straightened up, and I knew what had to be done. But as I took my first step toward the door, the question still lingered. Would I walk in and face her? Or would I simply leave and walk away from this toxic family for good? The sharp sound of the door slamming echoed in the empty house, reverberating in my chest like a deep, resounding drum. I stood there, motionless, the weight of what had just happened sinking in. My hands trembled as I gripped the letter, the words on the page burning into my mind. "We no longer need you." It felt like a cruel joke, one I could barely comprehend. How had I ended up here? How had the life I'd spent decades building, working tirelessly, sacrificing everything, come crumbling down in a matter of minutes? The room around me was eerily quiet, the only sound the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. It should have been a peaceful moment, but the silence only amplified the chaos in my head. I had been with this company for so long, giving everything I had, and yet it felt like none of it mattered now. As I scanned the room, my eyes landed on the framed photo of my family, smiling brightly in front of our old home. But it wasn't that house anymore, was it? The reality was, everything I thought I knew was slipping away like sand through my fingers. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. But it wasn't enough. A storm of emotions raged inside me. Anger, sadness, disbelief. But most of all, there was something darker, something that pushed me to stand taller. The thought hit me like a thunderclap. This wasn't the end. This was a beginning. This was the moment I'd been waiting for, even if I hadn't known it until now. I could either cower in the shadow of this betrayal, or I could rise. The decision was mine. I looked down at the letter again, at the cold, dismissive words, and something within me sparked. This wasn't just about losing my job or the years I had given away. It was about reclaiming the control that had slowly been taken from me. For years, I had played by their rules, lived by their expectations. I had given them my best. But now it was time to give my best to myself. I wasn't going to let this break me. I had built a life from the ground up, and I was damn well going to rebuild it on my terms. The realization hit me like a rush of adrenaline. I had the strength to fight this, to turn everything around. But how? The questions hung in the air, heavy with the weight of uncertainty. But for the first time, I felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about taking back what was mine, what I had earned, what I had been denied for so long. The battle was just beginning, and I wasn't backing down. No matter what they thought, I was stronger than they could ever imagine. What would happen next? Would I stand up, fight back, and take control? Or would I let this moment pass and fade into regret? The phone rang at the worst possible moment. It was 3 a.m., the silence of the night broken only by the harsh buzz of the ringtone. I glanced at the screen, my heart sinking as I saw the name. My brother, Alex. What could he possibly need at this hour? I answered with a mix of dread and curiosity. Hello. My voice was barely above a whisper, the fatigue thick in my words. Ellie, it's bad. Really bad. Alex's voice was strained, panicked. He's gone. And they think you did it. Those words hit me like a cold slap to the face. My mind raced as I tried to make sense of them, but the fear in his voice made it clear that nothing good was coming. What do you mean, Alex? Who's gone? Dad, he whispered.
Dad's dead.
They're saying it's not an accident. And I think they might think you're involved. A sharp, searing pain shot through my chest as the reality of his words sank in. My father, the man who raised me, taught me everything I knew, was gone. And now they were trying to pin this on me? How could this be happening? My mind spun with 1,000 thoughts at once, none of them making sense. I hadn't seen Dad in days. How could anyone believe I had anything to do with this? Alex, what are you talking about? What's going on? I felt the panic clawing at my throat, but I swallowed it down. There had to be some mistake. They think you had a reason, Ellie, Alex continued, his voice shaking. They think you were the one who... I cut him off. Stop. I'm not the person they're looking for. You have to believe me. I could hear him breathing heavily, the distance between us making the situation feel even more suffocating. Ellie, I don't know what's going on either, but you need to get to the house.
Now.
The phone clicked and the line went dead. My mind was spinning. I didn't have answers. I didn't even know where to begin. But one thing was clear. I was about to step into a nightmare that I couldn't run from. How could I prove my innocence when everything seemed so stacked against me? In that moment, a cold resolve settled over me. I couldn't let fear paralyze me. I had to go to the house, face whatever this was head on, and find out the truth. I couldn't let them tear my life apart without a fight. But I wasn't just fighting for my freedom. I was fighting to find out who could do something so terrible to the man who had once been my world. The question lingered, heavy and unspoken. Who could kill a man and leave me to take the blame? I sat there, the weight of the phone in my hand heavy as the silence in the room seemed to stretch endlessly. The message from Facebook was still on the screen. Please verify your identity by uploading a recent photo of your face. It had been weeks since I had reactivated my account, but now this. I thought I had everything sorted. But this new step, it was unexpected. A nagging feeling settled in my stomach. Why was this happening now, out of the blue? I had just gone through the process of confirming my identity through my old phone number. So why, after all this time, was Facebook asking for another round of verification? A cold shiver ran down my spine. I wasn't paranoid, but something felt off. It wasn't just a simple photo verification. I'd heard stories of people being locked out of their accounts, their memories and photos stripped away without warning. I'd spent years curating the memories of my life on that account. My children growing up, family vacations, milestones. Now, it felt like those precious moments were slipping further out of reach. I pulled up the camera on my phone, trying to steady my breathing. Just one more photo, I told myself, just one more step, and it'll be over. But as I stared at my reflection, I felt an uncomfortable pang of doubt. Was this a routine security check? Or was something else going on? Why hadn't it been necessary before? Why was Facebook suddenly so intent on verifying my face? It all seemed like an intrusion, an unsettling reminder that, no matter how secure I thought I was, someone out there was always watching. I could feel my pulse quickening as I looked at the camera lens, the cold blue light illuminating my features. I hadn't expected this when I logged on to check a simple message. A few quick taps on my phone had led to this moment, a question about my identity, a digital barrier that was now blocking me from my own past. And with each second I spent staring at my reflection, the sense of unease deepened. Was this all just a glitch, or was someone somewhere testing how far they could go? I clicked the button to submit my photo, my heart pounding in my chest. Seconds passed. Then minutes. The screen didn't change. It felt like time was moving in slow motion. I tried refreshing the page, but nothing happened. It was like my account, my digital life, was suddenly out of reach, just beyond my grasp. What was happening to my data? Was I being hacked? Could they be using this photo for something else entirely? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in the middle of something far more sinister than just a simple verification process. Then, just as I was about to give up, the notification popped up on my screen. Verification successful. But the relief didn't come. Instead, the question burned in my mind. What had I just signed up for? What had I just allowed to happen to my personal information, to the very thing I had once trusted without question? The sense of dread didn't leave. And I couldn't help but wonder, was this just the beginning of something bigger, something I couldn't see coming?
Chat đã nói.
The world around me seemed to blur as I stared at the screen, the latest email from my husband's boss burning into my eyes. The subject line alone sent a chill down my spine. Immediate action required. Critical situation. My heart raced as I clicked it open, barely able to prepare myself for the contents. The words felt like a punch to my gut. Your husband, Mark, has been given a final warning. His position is at risk unless immediate improvements are made. I stared at the screen in disbelief, the words spinning in my head. What do you mean, at risk? Mark had been working tirelessly at the firm for years. He had put in long hours, sacrificed time with the family. Everything he did was for the company.
But now,
it seemed like all of that hard work had led to this. One single email that could cost him everything. I could hear the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the only sound in the room as the weight of the situation settled in. My mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. What had gone wrong? Had something happened at the office that I didn't know about? Mark had always been meticulous, so why would he be at risk of losing everything he worked for? I looked around the room, the familiar surroundings suddenly feeling unfamiliar. How had we gotten here? It was hard to focus on anything beyond that email, beyond the cold, harsh reality that Mark's career, our stability, was hanging by a thread. I had always believed in his ability, in his worth. But now I was questioning everything. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps outside the door pulled me back to reality. It was Mark. I could hear his keys rattling as he fumbled with them. Probably distracted, still dealing with whatever had happened at work. My stomach twisted. I hadn't even spoken to him yet about the email, hadn't figured out how to approach this. What would I say? How could I say it? How could I ask him what had gone wrong when I didn't even understand it myself? As the door creaked open, I quickly minimized the email and stood up, trying to steady my breath. He walked in, looking worn out but still trying to wear that smile of his usual attempt to hide whatever was bothering him. But this time, I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't let him hide behind that smile. Hey, you okay? I asked, my voice tight. He stopped in his tracks, pausing for just a moment longer than usual before answering. Yeah, just a rough day. A rough day. That was all. But I knew something more was going on. There was more to this story, and I was going to find out what it was, no matter how hard it was to face. I couldn't just sit back and let him go down this road alone. What had started as a typical day was now spiraling into something I didn't fully understand, something I wasn't ready to face. But one thing was for sure, I wasn't going to let it break us. The question was, could we survive whatever was coming next? I could feel the tension building in the pit of my stomach as I sat across from my husband, Carl, at the dinner table. The weight of the conversation that was about to unfold hung heavy in the air, thick enough to choke on. His fingers were tapping nervously on his glass, his eyes avoiding mine, not meeting my gaze for more than a fraction of a second at a time. I could sense it. The silence that had stretched between us for weeks was now threatening to crack wide open, and whatever was hiding behind it would finally come to light. The question that had been swirling in my mind, that I'd been too afraid to ask, was now begging to be answered. Carl, I began, my voice steady but unsure. What's going on with the business? You've been distant, and I don't just mean for me. You've been avoiding your own team, the clients, everyone. You've barely been at the office. And I found something. I could see him stiffen as soon as the words left my mouth, his jaw tightening. He set his glass down with a little more force than necessary, and for the first time in weeks, his eyes finally met mine. But they weren't the eyes of the man I had married. There was something cold, guarded about them now. Something that didn't belong. Something that told me this was more than just a little work stress, that this was deeper than anything I had anticipated. "What did you find?" he asked. His voice quiet but laced with an edge that sent a chill through me. I leaned forward, my heart pounding in my chest. I had already seen the signs, had already pieced together the fragments of the puzzle. It was the invoices that didn't match up, the calls that went unanswered, the sudden and inexplicable transfers from the business account to a number I couldn't trace. And the cold, distant way he'd been treating us, had only pushed me further to investigate. This wasn't just about finances anymore. This was about the life we had built, the life I thought I understood. "I found the receipts," I said, my voice barely a whisper.
Carl.
"You've been hiding money. You've been moving it around, and I don't know why. I don't know what's going on, but it doesn't look good." He sat back, his face pale, his lips pressed into a thin line. The silence that followed was suffocating. I could hear my heartbeat, feel the blood rushing in my ears. I had asked the question, but now, in the face of his silence, I feared I might not want to hear the answer. What had I uncovered? And more importantly, what was Carl hiding? The clock on the wall ticked loudly, as if mocking the uncertainty hanging between us. Carl finally spoke, but his words felt like a cold gust of wind. "You have no idea what you're getting into, do you?" The words were a warning, a promise of something darker beneath the surface. And just like that, I realized that whatever was about to come next would change everything. Would I have the courage to face the truth? Or would I wish I had never asked the question at all? I stood at the edge of the sidewalk, staring at the for sale sign in front of the house that had once been my dream. The place that had promised a fresh start, a new chapter, now felt like a bitter reminder of everything I had lost. The ground beneath my feet seemed to shift, as if the very foundation of my world was crumbling away. The house had been my escape, my sanctuary after years of struggling, of giving up everything I thought I knew to build a new life. But it wasn't just the house that was slipping through my fingers, it was my entire future. I had thought that moving here would solve everything, that it would be my second chance. But now, standing there, I realized how wrong I was. I felt my pulse quicken as the door behind me opened. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. My husband, Tom, was finally home. He'd been distant for weeks. His absence felt more sharply with each passing day. He had promised this new life, this new beginning, but now it seemed as if he had left me to face the consequences of our decisions alone. I hadn't heard from him in days, and now here he was, stepping out of the car with that same blank expression he always wore, like he was somewhere else entirely. My throat tightened as I tried to speak, but the words caught in my chest. I wanted to ask him what had happened, what had gone wrong, but I knew he wouldn't have the answers. "You okay?" His voice was flat, almost robotic, but I didn't miss the hint of guilt in his eyes. The way he avoided looking directly at me. There was something he wasn't saying, something buried deep beneath the surface. And I was done pretending I didn't see it. "No, Tom, I'm not okay," I said, my voice shaking slightly despite my efforts to stay calm. "You've been gone for days, and now we're about to lose everything. This house, everything we worked for, is slipping through our fingers. And you don't seem to care." I could see the discomfort flash across his face, but he didn't respond right away. It was as if the words I'd just spoken were too much for him to process. His gaze dropped to the ground, his hands shoved in his pockets, like he was trying to disappear into himself. I could feel the space between us widening, the distance growing with each passing second. "Look," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's not what you think. I've been trying to fix this, but I'm not sure I can." His words hit me like a slap, and, for a moment, I couldn't breathe. He wasn't sure he could fix it? This wasn't just something that could be fixed with a few simple gestures. This was everything we had worked for, everything we had built together. And now it was all falling apart. The betrayal, the lies, the secrecy. He had been hiding something from me, something big. And now I had to know the truth. "Tom, what's going on?" I demanded, my voice cracking as the weight of the situation finally sank in. What aren't you telling me? His silence was deafening. I waited, heart pounding in my chest, as the seconds dragged on. But no answer came. The fear gnawing at my insides grew stronger with each passing moment. What had we done? And was it too late to fix it? I hadn't meant for it to happen this way. Standing on the street corner, I felt a rush of panic as I stared at the flashing lights of the tow truck in front of my driveway. The cold night air seemed to mock me, as if everything that had once been familiar and secure was now slipping through my fingers. It wasn't just the car, it was everything that had led to this moment, every decision that had been made, every compromise that had felt necessary at the time. But now, as I watched the tow truck pull away with my car, I knew that I had crossed a line. I had waited too long, hoped for too much, and now it was all crumbling down. I turned around slowly, my breath coming in shallow bursts as I watched my husband, Peter, standing at the front door, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. His silence spoke louder than any words could. It was his fault we were here, wasn't it? He had made the choices, the ones that had put us in this situation. The ones that had led to the bills piling up, the credit cards maxing out, the car now being taken away because we couldn't make the payment. He had insisted we could weather the storm, that it was just a temporary setback. But I wasn't sure I believed him anymore. The weight of it all was too heavy. The lies, the promises, the days when I pretended everything would get better. And now, standing there in the dark, I realized how much I had lost and how little I was willing to fight for anymore. "Peter, this can't be happening," I said, my voice barely a whisper. My throat tightened with emotion, but I couldn't stop myself. "We're losing everything. How did we let it get this far?" Peter didn't move. He stood there, rooted to the spot, not even meeting my eyes. The silence between us was deafening, like a storm cloud that hung above us, threatening to break at any moment. The man I had once trusted, the man I thought could fix anything, now seemed like a stranger. Was he really so oblivious to the mess we were in, or had he simply given up? The questions burned in my mind, but I couldn't find the answers. "You should have told me," I added, my voice cracking, the tears I had been holding back threatening to spill over. "You should have told me we were this far in trouble. I would have helped. I would have done something." But his response never came. His lips stayed pressed together, and that was when I understood. He wasn't going to fix this. Not for me, not for us. The realization hit me like a wave. This wasn't just about the car or the bills, or the sinking finances. This was about the loss of trust, the unraveling of everything I had believed in. And now, with every passing second, I was left wondering just how much more I could take before I finally walked away. Would I walk away? Or would I stay and fight for something that seemed already lost? The evening air was thick with tension as I stood there, staring at the for sale sign that had been placed in front of the house I had spent years building. My chest tightened, my breath shallow as I fought the overwhelming surge of emotions threatening to take over. This house, this dream, was slipping away from me. I had poured everything into it. My time, my energy, my money. Every corner of this place held memories of what I had worked so hard for, and now it was about to be taken from me. I could feel the weight of the past few weeks pressing down on my chest. The constant worry, the endless phone calls, the late-night stress that had kept me awake. And yet, it wasn't just the house. It was everything. The job I'd lost, the financial collapse that had followed, the betrayal I hadn't even seen coming. How had it come to this? My hands trembled as I reached into my pocket for my phone, staring at the name flashing on the screen. It was him, James, my husband, the man who had promised me that we'd make it through anything, the man who had stood by my side when we first started this journey. But now, his silence over the past few days felt like a betrayal in itself. He hadn't been home when I needed him most, hadn't been there when the bills piled up, or when the letters from the bank started arriving. He had distanced himself from everything, as if pretending it wasn't happening would somehow make it go away. But it wasn't going away. Not this time. I swiped the screen, my heart racing, as his voice came through, distant and tired.
Hey,
Are you okay? He asked, but there was no emotion behind it, no concern. It was as if he was asking out of habit, not because he truly cared. I could hear the faint sound of traffic in the background, and for a moment I wondered if he was even at home. Was he calling from the office, or was he out somewhere avoiding this too? I'm not okay, James, I said, my voice shaky. This is happening. The house is going, and we're losing everything. Why haven't you been here? Why haven't you been answering your phone? There was a long pause, his silence like a slap across my face.
I'm sorry.
Okay, he finally said, his words barely above a whisper. But there's nothing I can do now. It's too late. Too late. The words echoed in my mind, a final blow that I couldn't shake off. I wanted to scream, to shout, to make him understand what he had done, what we had lost because of his inaction. But instead, I felt an unsettling calm settle over me. Too late? Was it too late? Or was this just the beginning of something that could change everything? I looked at the house one last time, the familiar walls standing tall, even though they felt like they were crumbling. And I made a decision. No more waiting. No more depending on someone who wasn't there when it mattered most. I would fix this. I would take control, even if it meant starting over from scratch. The question lingered in my mind. Could I rebuild my life? Or had I already lost everything that mattered?